imagine giving an attacker like a photographic memory and infinite patience.
Right, like their own dedicated war room.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this week, Google released a feature that does exactly that for productivity, but simultaneously, their own threat team caught hackers using that exact same AI architecture to bypass two-factor authentication in the wild.
Which is just wild timing.
It really is. So, okay, let's unpack this. We need to figure out how your favorite project management tool just became, well, the blueprint for the ultimate cyber weapon.
Yeah, the massive shifts.
We're looking at a real collision of sources for this deep dive today. We've got Google's new notebooks and Gemini release, a huge AP News report on thwarted cyber attacks, and, the shifting landscape of government regulation.
A lot of moving parts.
Right. So our mission today is clear. We need to understand what happens when the automated tools that you use to build your projects get weaponized by the attackers trying to tear them down.
Yeah, and to really grasp the severity of that shift, we have to look under the hood of what Google just deployed. Because up until very recently, our interactions with AI were largely stateless.
Meaning they forget everything, right?
Exactly. You throw a prompt at a model, it generates an output, and the transaction is basically over.
Right.
Even in a continuous chat, the model essentially suffers from amnesia once you exceed its token limit.
Right, it just drops the thread.
Yeah. But the Notebooks feature fundamentally rewrites that paradigm. By syncing across the Gemini app and Notebook LM, it creates this persistent, stateful workspace.
Okay, stateful.
Right. It's holding source documents, historical chat logs, custom system instructions, all simultaneously. It's maintaining context for what Google explicitly calls longer-running projects.
So basically, we spent the last year worrying about AI hallucinating fake court cases. And while we were completely distracted by that, it was quietly learning how to systematically dismantle global supply chains over a period of weeks.
Pretty much, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, it's like upgrading an AI from a temporary scratchpad with amnesia to a fully operational war room.
That's a great way to put it.
Because if an AI can patiently manage a complex student research project or, a massive coding sprint over several days without losing its place.
Right, holding all the API docs and diagrams in memory.
Exactly. Then that exact same persistent memory allows an autonomous AI agent to just meticulously map a target's network architecture over time.
And what's fascinating here is that that is the defining mechanism of the threat. We tend to talk about a model's context window strictly as a technical spec, right?
It's just token limits.
Yeah, just a metric of how many tokens it can process.
Yeah.
But you have to view this through an adversarial lens. In the hands of an attacker, a massive context window isn't just memory. It is situational awareness.
Oh, wow. Situational awareness.
Exactly. It means the model can hold your company's public GitHub commits, leaked credential dumps from the dark web, and the real-time responses of your network defenses all in its memory at once.
So it's correlating all these disparate data points.
Right, across time. It never drops the thread of the investigation.
But, I mean, macking a network in a war room is still just reconnaissance, right? It's theoretical. The terrifying part of the sources we're looking at today is when that AI agent actually decides to execute.
Right, which brings us to the AP News report.
Exactly. What Google's threat intelligence team actually disrupted in the wild. Because according to the report, prominent threat actors didn't just use an AI to brainstorm. They used an AI model to discover and exploit a live zero-day vulnerability.
A live zero-day?
Yeah. And they didn't just target a random database. They went straight for a popular online system administration tool. Which, honestly, I want to ask you about because that feels counterintuitive to me.
How so?
Well, if you are wielding an AI with that much capability, why attack a system admin tool? You're hitting the most heavily guarded part of the stack. Why not go for the soft underbelly, like an HR portal or a third-party vendor?
Because of the leverage provided by trust anchors.
Trust anchors.
Yeah. Hacking an HR portal gets you one data set. Compromising a system admin tool grants you supply chain leverage.
Ah, I see.
System administrators are the nerve center of modern infrastructure. I mean, they use these tools to manage networks, push updates, and maintain access across hundreds, sometimes thousands, of entirely separate businesses.
So it's not just picking a lock.
Exactly.
Right.
Hacking an admin tool isn't breaking into a building. It is stealing the master key factory.
That is terrifying.
It gets worse. The mechanism of how the AI achieved this is what operators really need to internalize. The AP report noted the vulnerability allowed the attackers to completely bypass two-factor authentication.
Okay, hey, wait, I want to pause on that because that is where the architecture of defense usually breaks down for me. We've been told for like a decade that 2FA is the ultimate backstop.
Right.
So how does an AI just step around a cryptographic challenge? I mean, it's not guessing a six-digit code in real time, right?
No, it's not brute forcing the code at all. It's exploiting the logic of the authentication sequence.
The logic.
Right. Because the AI has that persistent situational awareness, it can ingest the entire API documentation of the admin tool and look for undocumented or deprecated endpoints.
Oh, man.
Yeah. In these types of bypasses, the AI often chains together multiple low-level permissions. So, for example, it might find a legacy API endpoint that issues session cookies without explicitly enforcing the multi-factor challenge.
And then it just chains that with something else.
Exactly. It chains that with a separate vulnerability that allows it to elevate those cookie privileges.
Wow.
Defending against an AI with persistent memory isn't like finding a broken brick in a firewall. It's like trying to secure a casino where the attacker has a photographic memory of every single time a specific dealer shuffles the deck.
That's insane.
They aren't breaking the door down.
Yep.
They're exploiting the mathematical reality of the system's logic.
Which means the traditional perimeter that you rely on is fundamentally porous. If an AI can hold enough of your architecture in its contest window to find that logical gap, your company-wide 2FA mandate is basically a chain link fence holding back water.
That's exactly what it is.
John Hultquist, he's the chief analyst at Google's threat intelligence arm. He had a quote in the AP article that frames this perfectly. He said, "The era of AI-driven vulnerability and exploitation is already here."
Already here, not coming.
Yeah,
Here.
exactly. And he explicitly pointed to the massive advantage criminal hackers gain from AI's tremendous capability for speed.
Speed is the axis this entire war turns on. The vulnerability lifecycle has been radically accelerated.
Right.
I mean, historically, finding a complex chain of logical flaws to bypass authentication would take a team of human researchers months of painstaking trial and error.
Just poking at things manually.
Right. But an AI agent operating in a persistent workspace, it can simulate thousands of attack paths in hours.
Or instead of months.
Yeah, this acceleration is exactly why we are seeing an outright arms race between offensive and defensive AI models right now.
Which is reflected in our sources today, like Anthropic's new model.
Yes, Mythos.
Right, Anthropic just developed Mythos, which is reportedly so strikingly capable at cybersecurity exploitation that they've entirely restricted its release to trusted organizations.
And that restriction triggered the launch of Project Glasswing. Right.
Exactly, bringing together Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft just to try and secure critical software against these hyper-capable models. But wait, we also have the OpenAI announcement from this week, too.
Right, the specialized defender model.
Yeah, they released a specialized cybersecurity ChatGPT strictly for defenders. But, I mean, if we have OpenAI building tools for the good guys, and the bad guys are using their own open source or jailbroken model...
Are you asking if it's a stalemate?
Yeah, are we just looking at mutually assured destruction? A technological stalemate?
It is absolutely not a stalemate, and thinking of it that way gives operators a false sense of security.
Really? Why?
Because the asymmetry of cybersecurity is heavily tilted in favor of the attacker. An offensive AI only needs to be fast enough to find one single viable exploit path. It can just run in its persistent workspace, endlessly fuzzing your network, and wait for one single success. But as Dean Ball, he's a senior fellow at the Foundation for American Innovation, as he points out in the research, defenders have a fundamentally different job.
What's their scale?
They have to secure untold trillions of lines of software code globally.
Untold trillions. But how does a Defender AI actually do that? Like, if I get access to OpenAI's new Defender model, is it just running glorified search queries across my code base?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't sound fast enough to stop an AI actively chaining API logic flaws.
Well, no, that's where the defensive architecture is shifting. The new specialized defender models don't just search for known bad signatures anymore.
What do? They
ingest legacy code, convert it into abstract syntax trees, and actually use the large language model to understand the actual intent of the code.
Wait, really? The intent?
Yeah. The AI audits the logic. It looks at a function and says, okay, this is supposed to verify a user token, but under these specific edge cases, it fails open. The Defender AI is actively trying to map the logic flaws before the attacker's AI finds them. Sometimes it even automatically generates sandboxed environments for vulnerable functions.
Okay, that is pretty impressive.
It is. But even with that capability, remember, the defender has to be right every single time across trillions of lines of code. The attacker only has to be right once.
Right. So for you listening, the builders, the founders, the operators running infrastructure right now, What is the actual playbook? Because Dean Ball notes we are entering a transitional period of extreme risk.
We absolutely are.
We really need to cut through the vendor hype and build a practical, evidence-based approach to defense based on these sources. What do they do first?
Well, the primary insight here isn't just the standard advice to patch faster. Based on the zero-day bypass we've analyzed, the first thing you must do is shift your entire mentality from perimeter defense to internal zero trust.
So assuming standard 2FA is no longer a silver bullet.
Exactly. If an AI can hold a million lines of code in its context window to find the invisible door through your 2FA, you have to assume the AI is already inside the house. Your internal services must require continuous authentication, not just at the perimeter.
Okay. And the second part of that playbook has to address the speed of the vulnerability lifecycle. Because the term 0 day historically meant you had 0 days to prepare before the attack began.
Right.
But now it means you literally have 0 days to push the fix. If an AI discovers a flaw, the exploitation is immediate.
Which requires a shift to highly ephemeral infrastructure.
Ephemeral infrastructure.
Yeah. You need architectures that can be isolated, spun down, and updated instantly without breaking your core supply chain. You simply cannot rely on a 30-day patch cycle anymore.
Makes sense.
And third, you must adopt these specialized defensive AI models, like the new OpenAI release, to aggressively audit your own legacy code and internal APIs. You have to hunt for your own logical flaws before an adversarial agent with persistent memory does it for you.
You have to beat them to it.
Exactly.
But, implementing those technical defenses doesn't just happen in a vacuum. You also have to navigate the environment governing these tools, which brings us to a massive variable in the sources today, the regulatory landscape.
Right, the political shift.
Now, to be incredibly clear, we aren't taking a political side here, but as operators, you need to know that government oversight of these models is in flux. The AP reports that the incoming Trump administration has repealed previous Biden-era guardrails surrounding AI safety testing.
Right.
And simultaneously, the new administration has signed rapid vetting agreements with Google, Microsoft, and xAI while publicly clashing with Anthropic over military applications of their models.
Yeah, and the operational takeaway from that political friction is that the security burden is shifting heavily and directly onto you.
Onto the operators.
Exactly. The regulatory environment is wildly unpredictable right now. You cannot operate under the assumption that government vetting processes or even the AI labs themselves are going to perfectly sanitize these models before they hit the open internet. The transitional period of heightened danger we talked about, it is already active.
Which opens up a much deeper, almost philosophical tension that we need to address before we wrap up today. If we look at the board right now, you have hyper-capable models like Anthropic's Mythos being tightly locked down.
Right.
You have Project Glasswing consolidating defense strategies among 4 or 5 mega corporations. And you have government vetting that seems to heavily favor massive established labs. Are we marching toward a feudal system of cybersecurity?
System.
Yeah, where a handful of megacorporations are the lords with the impenetrable castles holding the only AI models capable of digital defense. And the open source developers are just, the peasants left outside the walls.
It is a profound risk. Centralizing the ultimate defensive tools, like these highly vetted specialized security models, it creates a massive target. And it also starves the independent ecosystem of the very mechanisms they need to survive the automated attacks we just discussed.
Right.
If an open source builder cannot access a defender AI capable of mapping abstract syntax trees and finding logical flaws, they simply cannot compete against an attacker utilizing an open source or jailbroken offensive agent.
But I guess the counter argument from the mega labs is that proliferating a model like Mythos into the open source community is essentially equivalent to handing out weapons-grade plutonium, right?
Right.
But doesn't hoarding the plutonium just ensure that only the megacore survive this transitional period? If the cost of securing a standard software supply chain requires an enterprise license to an exclusive government-vetted AI war room, the barrier to entry for innovation just skyrockets.
It does. And that is the exact friction point operators are going to feel over the next 24 months. The centralization of defensive AI might prevent a catastrophic global supply chain collapse in the short term, but it fundamentally alters who gets to build software safely in the long term.
Which leaves you with this final thought to dissect. As AI memory evolves and these persistent, highly contextual agents become the standard for both building and breaking software, your threat model has permanently changed.
It really has.
If the ultimate tools for digital defense are increasingly restricted to a few tech giants and nation states, how does your team plan to secure its infrastructure? When the tools you need to build your product are the exact same tools mapping your vulnerabilities, who holds the ultimate advantage? The massive centralized castle or the decentralized builders just trying to survive the crossfire?